Welcome everybody. It's really great to have everybody online, and welcome to a brand new Sparx Global webinar presentation. This webinar series will be posted on Sparx Systems YouTube channel, allowing us to hear from Sparx Systems experts from all around the world on a variety of different topics. So we're really looking forward to this new series, and very pleased to have Ryan with us today to get the process started. So Sparx Global encompasses Sparx companies from all around the world that facilitate services, support, localization, training, mentoring, and more. So if the content today in any one of the upcoming series piques your interest or you find it interesting, please reach out to Sparx Services in your region. I'm just going to bring up the website here, and you can see the Sparx Services page is sparxservices.com/partners, sparxservices.html. So reach out to Sparx Services in your region if you want training, consulting, mentoring, support. Reach out, contact them, and they'll be sure to help. So today we are learning about architecture in the digital age as delivered by a member of the Sparx Services North American team, Ryan Schmier. So I'd like to introduce Ryan Schmier, who's the Director of Operations at Sparx Services North America. So Ryan is a recognised industry thought leader in the areas of digital transformation, IT strategy, service management and operation. He's an accomplished business and enterprise architect with over 20 years experience working with leaders across diverse business functions to translate business strategies into architectural vision and implementation roadmaps. He's a contributing author of the Open Group IT for IT reference architecture industry standard, and a speaker and writer on topics of IT transformation, emerging trends in service management, enterprise architecture, and business strategy. So it's great to have you here today, Ryan. If you want to just say hi.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me today.
No problems at all. So the agenda for today, I'm going to briefly talk about how to submit questions. We're then going to hand over to a demonstration that Ryan's going to run, and we'll finish up at the end with a Q&A session. So please note that audio is muted for all participants. You'll be able to type your questions to the host, and I'll try and get back to them as soon as I can. But if we can't answer all questions live, we'll follow up offline. On the right of screen, you have a go-to question box, so you can simply enter your question and hit send or hit enter on the numeric keypad, and that'll come through to us, and we'll be able to look at those questions for you. But right now, I'd like to hand over to Ryan, who's going to present on the architecture in the digital age. So thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Scott. Did you make me the presenter?
I am going to make you a presenter right now.
Oh, that'll help.
That will help.
Okay.
Okay. You might need to change the screen that you... Excellent. I can see it and it looks great. So thanks, Ryan. I'll hand over to you, and looking forward to this presentation.
Fantastic. Thanks, Scott. So first off, welcome everyone. My name is Ryan Schmier. I'm the Director of Operations at Sparx Services North America. And we are an organization that's really focused on helping companies get the most value they can out of the Sparx platform by providing not only a localized source for procuring the software, but also the training, consulting, best practices on how to use the Sparx platform most effectively. And let me get us in here so slides start moving. There we go. Okay, so everyone, welcome to the digital age, an area where science fiction fantasy becomes reality, where the boundaries between people and machines start to disappear, where global markets and opportunities are really available to everyone. This is a time when we can finally unlock the treasure trove of collective knowledge that humans have developed and built over the ages, and turn it into something valuable and something amazing for our organizations. When we think back at the past decade or so, it's brought together a set of new capabilities that are fundamentally changing the way business, culture, and the human experience works for us. It's an exciting and scary time that we're going through right now as architects. And in our role as architects, we really have the opportunity to be a part of something great and something exciting. As we think about the world of business, it's changing fast, it's changing dramatically. We see digital transformation of business processes, explosion of big data, proliferation of cloud services, machine learning, artificial intelligence, quantum computing. Oh yeah, Pokemon Go. I heard there was a Squirtle around here someplace. Just making sure you're paying attention. And we're seeing business markets and economies changing faster than ever before. That pace continues to accelerate day after day, year after year. With this change comes disruption. Disruption in our business, disruption in our markets, disruption in our workforce. It's forecasted that up to 47% of the global workforce, that's everybody in the workforce, will be disrupted in one way or another because of the automation and emerging technology that's coming into the market right now. You as architects and as players in that workforce have a choice of whether you become a victim of that change or leverage it as a catalyst to help achieve bigger and better things, both professionally and for your organizations. A few years ago, I gave a presentation at the Open Group, framing this problem for a group of architects and IT professionals. Here's what we talked about back then. We looked into the future 3 to 5 years, which is a great time horizon for architects because it's far enough out we can influence our destiny, but close enough we have relative certainty about what's going to happen. What did we see coming at us? We saw a prediction that cloud service providers would start running the data centers that we saw on premise. We saw cable, cell phone, and other service providers running the network. We were seeing that SaaS providers were emerging as the producers of business applications to enable business processes. Well, as IT organizations and architects, that brought up some rather startling questions. Well, if all these other people are going to be doing the work that traditionally IT did, what does that leave for us? Are IT organizations and architects destined for irrelevance? Well, when we talked about it back then, we understood that organizations and individuals had a choice. If we continue with the same behaviors, with the same processes, with the same tools that we've been using for the last couple of decades, we were really destined for not a very happy place, becoming irrelevant to our organizations. But instead, we talked about how to imagine a future that was happier, that was more successful for us, where we became true business enablers and IT became a broker of these services and found their place in the value stream. As architects and as IT professionals, we became stewards of enterprise data and the champions of security and service assurance. But we understood that if we wanted to achieve the better outcome, we needed to act differently and we needed to think differently. We needed to look at how we define success. We need to look at the skills of ourselves and the others in the workforce. We need to look at the culture of our organizations. And we need to change the way we work in order to deliver greater value to the enterprise. So that's the journey we talked about. There was a good acknowledgement in the room at the time that, yep, those are the things that need to change. The good news is that's really what we've seen happen across the industry over the last 5 years or so. As Sparx Services North America, we work with companies every day who are going through sort of this transition. And this is really the core of where the conversation's going about doing architecture in the digital age. It's saying, yes, I understand all these disruptions are happening, and I'm not going to be afraid of them. I'm going to embrace them. I'm going to find my place in them, and I'm going to use them as tools and enablers to move my organization forward and help develop individuals in their career. As we looked at those changes, one of the most important things that we talk to customers about every day is the need for the right set of skills within their workforce. And some sort of statistical reference here. In 2012, the World Economic Forum published some research on the future of work, and that's where that 47% disruption number came from. And they didn't just analyze sort of what jobs are going away, but they looked at what are the critical skills that the leaders and the influential people in the workforce were going to need over the next decade, and what was going to be in demand. What they came up with was a list of top 10, and these are three of the ones that really popped out there: critical thinking, complex decision making, and problem solving. Good news for us as architects is these are the skills that we've been using for years. This is at the core of what we do and who we are and the value we add to organizations. So what that means is, as architects, our skills are needed more than ever in our organizations and our industries. One of the other important developments in the digital age, as we start talking about some of the underlying changes going on, is a shift in the role of data within organizations. In the past, data was seen as an artifact, as something that came out of business processes, something that was recorded by systems. We're starting to see a realization that data is the fuel that allows digital organizations and digitally transformed business processes to operate. IT systems aren't there to orchestrate business processes. They're there to orchestrate the capture and transformation and consumption of data. And for those people who really understand data and understand the role that data plays within business operations, they will be better positioned to help their organizations evolve through some of the changes that are ahead. What we're seeing is data becoming more and more important in the organization, while processes and technology in many ways are becoming commodities. And this is one of the biggest changes that architects need to understand about their role in the digital era. It's not about building the greatest, grandest systems that will last forever. It's about helping facilitate the flow of information and processing and business activity through their organization using tools and using data. There are a large selection of third-party components on the market today for pretty reasonable prices. They come with pre-configured data models and a set of processes. Think about your HR systems, your finance systems, your marketing systems. You don't need to create this stuff from scratch. You don't need to architect it from scratch. You need to understand what's available and start assembling it. If the product doesn't meet their needs, what organizations are finding is that rather than trying to fix or customize the solution, sometimes it's better to just look and see if there's a different product on the market that they can interchange. So as we think of the role of technology in modern organizations, it's not about building solutions, it's about assembling them, and individual components of those solutions, rather than trying to repair everything. There's a lot more of the disposable mentality going on. As architects, this means a couple of things for us. One, we need to stop necessarily thinking about designing everything from scratch and start thinking more about building blocks, reuse, how do we leverage pre-built components in our architectures. We also need to make sure that as technology practitioners that we're keeping current with market trends, what are the new offerings in the space we're trying to support, and what are the emerging technology changes that are going on that you can then advise your company on when and where they should be leveraging them. From a data perspective, you need to start thinking about data not just as sort of the leftovers of process, but you need to start looking at data really as being a durable asset that goes through a life cycle that your company needs to refine and use and harvest value from over an extended period of time. As architects, we also see our IT organizations changing. Most architects, whether they're solution architects, enterprise architects, live within the umbrella of an IT organization. We'll talk a little bit about some changes happening there in the structural components and where we're fitting within organizations. But today, most architects fit within the IT organization. We're seeing those IT organizations changing. Some of those changes are having to do with technology. Some of it is having to do with digital transformation and the relationship with the business. And some of it has to do with the organization's drive to be more agile. But whatever the source, we're definitely seeing some shifts away from sort of the heavy governance, top-down, command and control type structure to more of a, how do we enable controlled chaos? How do we enable change to happen in a more fluid and safe way? We're seeing, some of the concepts around agile really start to embody themselves in the cultures of IT organizations. With that, we still see a lot of people who are resistant to anything structure, architecture, governance, standards. Well, those are things that slow us down. No, not necessarily. We need to work with our organizations to craft out a new role for these things, to understand how these things are enablers of safe change and not things that slow down the business's ability to evolve. So it's great to understand what's kind of happening around us, but what do these things really mean to you as an architect? Well, change equals disruption. Change is hard, disruption is scary. People don't like being scared. As architects, your role is to help your companies navigate through the turbulent times ahead and emerge from the storm stronger than they are now. We talk about the impacts of the digital age on our companies and our IT organizations, but this is also impacting us as individuals and as architecture practitioners. And the question is, are you ready for the changes that are ahead? Okay, so as architects, we're trained to be big picture thinkers. We understand that success comes from looking at problems from different perspectives. We break complexity down into manageable pieces that we can successfully address. Here are some of the puzzle pieces that we're seeing and architects are seeing as they're navigating through these changes, and things that architects need to start looking at in order to be successful in the digital age. First one, business goals. Where's your company going? How are they making decisions? Are your tools enabling agility or are they slowing them down? 47% of the workforce being disrupted. Well, that's pretty big. The digital age is going to require entirely new ways of thinking and ways of acting, which means changes to your company culture and changes to individual behavior. We're seeing reference models becoming more and more prevalent, and companies are understanding that they don't need to reinvent the wheel. They don't need to necessarily do things different and unique, that in many situations, it's best to leverage the work that other people have done as a way of accelerating how quickly you can bring new capabilities either into the market or the value you get from internal initiatives. We're seeing aggressive timelines. Your company needs to change quickly, and you need to help them do that. Communication and collaboration are critical in a global economy. Modeling languages are an important tool in helping bring together solutions from different providers, bring together companies that are part of business ecosystems. I was a project manager before I became an architect, and you better believe the triple constraint plays in here. Scope, time, resources, they all have to balance. They will all have to balance. Your company wants to do more and more, but they also want to spend less and less. They want it now. As architects, you're going to have to figure out how to help the organization balance those things. Architecture standards are great. Things like TOGAF, DODAF, they're great. But we really need to address the architecture agility issue if we want to be relevant and successful over the next few years. Our organizations have technology constraints. We choose to use this technology, that technology, this cloud provider, that one. We use these development environments. There's all sorts of technology constraints. They play an important role in understanding what we can do, how quickly we can do it, and what might need to change in order to enable the types of agility that the organizations are looking for. And then the last sort of important piece of the puzzle here is architect skills. It's last on the list, not because it's least important, but because updating your skills is the thing you have the most control over. And I also know that the last point on the slide is the thing you're most likely to remember because it's fresh in your mind. So if you remember one thing off of here, remember you need to update your skills. Okay, so when we start talking about skills, there's a concept that's really important here, and it's important not only for individuals, but to really understand what changes in the digital age, and that topic is agility. Okay, there are three types of agility that relate to enterprise architecture, and you need to understand all of them. And we had a webinar about this that you can find on the Sparx YouTube channel where we dug into this a little bit more. The first type of agility is the role of architects in supporting agile software development and agile project teams within their organizations. This is you supporting sort of the typical agile software thing. The second area is agile architecture, developing architectures that can evolve or applying agile methods in our own work. And then the third is business agility, using architecture as a tool to help make our companies more adaptive to change in their environment so they can leverage opportunities, they can address risks and threats more quickly. Enterprise business agility is really the goal we need to be reaching towards. And as we talk to companies that are going through the digital disruption right now, this is where most of the conversation goes. We hear a lot about digital transformation. Great, that's the first step on the journey to business agility. Once we restructure the relationships between people, process, and technology and get the mechanics worked out, the next step that the companies are going through is bringing their decision-making into real time so they can start analyzing what's going on and making decisions faster. Real-time decision-making then leads to a need to be more responsive to changes. And this kind of gets to the continuous improvement cycle, reinvention, that sort of thing. So as architects, we need to look beyond kind of the current digital transformation initiatives and help see where are we going, where's this leading, and help our leaders map out a path to the end goal, and that end goal is business agility. And agile architecture methods are really the help, or really the means to help us get there. And as a way to test on whether you're doing your architecture in an agile way, I challenge you with this. As you're sitting down with a business leader, maybe over a beer, a cocktail at the end of the day, can you map out your first iteration of the architecture on the cocktail napkin sitting in front of you? You should be able to. You need to start with something simple and iterate from there. And as an example, we actually tested this theory on, with one of our clients. It worked great. We mapped out the first iteration, said, yep, here's the basic concept of what we wanted to do. And it was enough to get the architecture process started. We also need to apply the concept of minimum viable product to our architectures. Stop striving for perfection and understand what a good enough architecture is to get the job done so we can start delivering the value sooner to our organizations. And then, just like we need to test our processes and solutions to learn where refinements are needed, we also need to figure out new ways to test our architectures too. We don't want to go on for weeks or months or years, assuming that our architecture is right, only to find out, oh, we misunderstood something. We misunderstood a need, or we didn't understand the implications of something. As architects, we need to figure out how to test our architectures as we go along. And then most importantly, we need to adopt a continuous improvement mindset. And here's a question that someone asked one time: when are you done with your architecture? Well, the answer is you're done with your architecture when you're dead, when you change jobs, or when your company ceases to exist. And hopefully none of those happen soon. But your architecture is something that continuously evolves as the environment changes and as your business changes. So I'm going to pause for a moment. Scott, I got a question for you. I know we had that webinar a couple of months ago on the topic of agile and enterprise architecture. What are your thoughts on how we're seeing the Sparx product offerings evolving to kind of embrace this agile trend?
So thanks, Ryan. Look, Enterprise Architect was designed from the ground up to be based around communication and about offering and delivering some of those agile capabilities, whether it's from having traceability that, now you talked about writing on a napkin. Well, here at Sparx, we'd actually, rather than use a napkin, we'd do a mind map in EA, so it's always traceable and it's always with the source of truth. But you have a single source of truth. Everyone in the organization can see that, and you can use tools like ProCloud Server so that you can communicate, you can have reviews, you can discuss items, you can show that simple digital transformation and see how it evolves into business rules and requirements and systems. So the digital transformation and the rapid change, you can capture all of that, you can store that within Enterprise Architect, and you can use tools like the ProCloud Server and ProLaborate to show management and all staff how agility is being managed, how the transformation is being managed, and being able to show that all within a single tool that people can collaborate, communicate, and join. So look, on that Sparx Systems YouTube channel, we looked at an airport example, and we had a look at BizBock and a number of different strategies, and showed how you can go all the way from a large corporate vision all the way down to business capabilities and rules and requirements, and talked about that agility. So with Enterprise Architect 15, ProCloud Server, and ProLaborate, there's certainly lots that you can do to address that at a software agile level, from user stories and requirements and traceability right up to enterprise business agility, through letting everybody understand the changes that are happening within an organization.
Fantastic. And I like the idea of doing my mind maps in EA. However, I have found that if you try and do that while drinking that beer, often you're spilling it into the keyboard, and that doesn't work out so well. So I'm still working on the waterproof keyboard, but when we get there, it'll all be golden for me.
Excellent.
Okay, so as getting back to this digital age and enterprises working in the digital era, when we think about what it means to be working in this era, the important thing to note is that this is a time where people and technology and data are all intertwined. They're inseparable. Silos need to start going away. It's time to grab your sledgehammer or any other tool in your toolbox and start busting down those silos. Start looking at what are the barriers within your organization, and how can you start removing those. The vision of kind of the boundaryless information flow across the enterprise, is something that came up a few years ago, and it really is still alive and well today, and something that we could argue is really at the core of everything that we will do as architects over the next few years, bringing these individual pieces together, not only the different layers of the architecture, but also the different functions within the organization. As we look at architecture and project teams and business and operations, how do we get that fluidity? How do we enable people to work together in a more interactive way? getting to where we want to be isn't something that can be done overnight. It isn't something that can just be assigned to a single function and expect success. It also isn't just a process or system problem. If we think of architecture, project teams, business teams as operations teams as all being part of a common discipline instead of separate functions, it makes understanding the next steps much easier. But before we get into sort of that target state, let's take a minute and look at the current state of affairs, because we aren't where we need to be yet, and that's part of why we're struggling right now. Okay, so we see architects up in their ivory tower with the windows closed, envisioning that brilliant future and all that is possible. We see project teams holed up in their workshops, heads down, delivering the latest features and fixes. We see ops teams out in the field, tending to the organization's technical landscape, pruning and watering to keep everything healthy and provide the outstanding experience that users are looking for. The problem here is that everybody is doing the job they were hired for, but we aren't working together in a cohesive unit. Our silos in processes, in job roles, in org structures and systems are getting in the way of achieving this vision of a boundaryless organization. Change, as we all know, starts with people. And that's why we're so excited about the emergence of a new role within organizations. And we're seeing this within a lot of companies, sort of the role or concept of a digital practitioner. It's a blend of technologist and business subject matter expert that really embraces the vision that digital transformation is all about. Some organizations, in fact, many organizations, are looking at their architects as the first to play this role, because architects sort of bridge that gap between technology and business already. And we can talk about this a little bit more. If you want to know more about this digital practitioner role, I'd actually refer you to the Open Group. They recently published a digital practitioner body of knowledge that provides a good sort of starting point to understand what a hybrid role of business and IT looks like. But bringing the roles together and bringing the skills together and developing that holistic skill set is the first step of breaking down those silos in the organization. We also need to look at moving away from functional silos in our data. We often have architects looking at sort of the connective tissue of the organization and the intent. What is it we want to do? How do things map together? And then we have the ops teams looking at the components and how things are operating. And what we really need to move to is the idea that architects have part of the puzzle and operations have another part of the puzzle, but you bring the two of them together and it's like, aha, I understand how all this fits together. And this is only possible if we have connected meta models and data quality that we can really trust, and the real-time updates to help us make the informed decisions, to see what's happening see what's really happening within our business operations and use that to inform our architecture development. Part of bringing that data, that picture together, is about understanding the whole system that's used to manage IT. And in most organizations, whether they're using legacy waterfall methods or something like Agile or DevOps, engineering, infrastructure ops, ITSM systems are typically integrated well enough today. Where we see a bit of a gap is actually with architecture system integration with the rest of what IT is using. The links from architecture to operations management are also becoming more important as we're looking at things like architecture as code and using models to drive provisioning and things like that. And so as we look at the systems that support our IT practices, most organizations have a little bit more system integration work to do to really be able to leverage their architecture data across the organization better. We provide the tools to model out the end-to-end IT operating system with Sparx Enterprise Architect, but we also, in the Sparx portfolio, have Pro Cloud Server that provides a platform for integrating with other IT systems, and Prolaborate, which I'm really excited about, and a lot of our customers have been really excited about, because Prolaborate is a tool that allows us to take the rich architecture content and share it with the non-architects within the organization, share it with the business users, share it with the executives, without getting them into the models, but giving it in a more user-friendly and executive-friendly view. So Scott, a question for you. For a long time, Sparx is kind of positioned itself as the best tool in the marketplace for architects, for doing modeling and things like that. With the addition of Prolaborate to the Sparx family of products, we're seeing Sparx platform becoming more. We're seeing it becoming more of a decision support system to enable the entire organization, not just architects. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and sort of, where we're going with that?
I think the Sparx tool suite gives us an ability now so that every person in the organization can have a better understanding of the vision and where that organization's headed. I think tools like Prolaborate help to spell out that architecture to non-enterprise architects and to CXOs and to other people that are key stakeholders that are important decision makers within the organization. But the Pro Cloud Server also allows you to share your models, to share your standards, to share those the enterprise architecture and the engineering specs. So I know here within Sparx Systems, we do it ourselves so that everything from our architecture to our design, even some of our marketing content, it's all stored in the team library. We can always see our standards, our structures, and everything is in a single source of truth that's been modeled within Enterprise Architect. And so what that allows us to do is it allows us to make decisions on code, on development, on sales, on marketing, on strategy, because everybody can see the information that they need and they can get access to it immediately, and then they can share it in a format which suits the target audience. So that might be, a TOGAF diagram or a set of requirements for our developers, or it might be, a set of charts and graphs to our, partners, or it might be, other information about webinars that get shared via Pro Cloud Server. So it really takes it from just looking at architecture and design and systems engineering, which Enterprise Architect really is, world-class leader and offers amazing value, but we've added to that by providing the ability to make decisions and to view information. So, for people out there, I suggest that you, go to sparxsystems.com/try and download the latest trial version of Enterprise Architect 15 and check out the Pro Cloud Server and try out some of these things for yourself to see how it might be able to help your organization. So that answer your question, Ryan?
Yeah, I think it does. Okay, so we just talked a little bit about what the digital age means for companies and IT organizations. Let's dial it in further and talk about what it means for architecture practices and job disciplines and individuals. And this is kind of a difficult topic for a lot of architects right now, because we're hearing a lot, and we see a lot of discussion out there in the marketplace about companies disbanding their architecture practice. People are like, wow, if architects are so important, why are some of the architecture practices going away? And there's an important thing to note here, and that's that architecture isn't going away, it's changing. Architecture as a profession and as a practice within companies goes through this pendulum cycle of centralizing and then decentralizing and then after it pushes out to the functions, then they realize they need to centralize it again and they bring it back. And so what we're actually seeing is the natural swing of architecture within organizations. So it's really not something to be concerned with. But what we are seeing very clearly right now is we're going through a cycle where many organizations who have invested heavily in centralized architecture are now going through a phase of distributing their architects out to their different business functions. And this goes along with the idea of digital transformation, where business and IT become intertwined. We're also seeing them start to move some of their IT development teams out to business functions. So you have business analysts and architects and developers all working together, to solve the business's problem. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It actually provides some new opportunities for architects to get deeply embedded and understand what's going on within their business organizations. However, as companies do that, we are seeing the need for them to look at how do they centrally coordinate those federated architecture functions through tooling, through governance, through skills, through standards. And it's not about stopping the pendulum or slowing it down or changing its direction. But as architects, we need to understand that organizations go through these patterns, and we need to figure out how to best support them as we're going through it. And either swing of the pendulum is a good thing for architects if you recognize what's going on and you craft your job role appropriately. Yes, we hear that some architects are getting laid off. And in some ways this is unfortunate. In some ways it's a reminder to us that we need to stay on our toes. And what we recommend people to do is think about this in the context of that performance discussion with your manager. When they ask, what value are you creating for the organization? And then listen to your own answer to that. If your answer focuses on what you did in the past, probably doesn't look so good. You're likely to get laid off. What you did in the past is great, but the company is operating in the present. If you talk about some architecture theory or some grand idea for the future, well, that's probably going to get you shoved in a corner someplace because nobody can understand what you're talking about. And also, the company doesn't know what the future is going to bring, so they don't know whether your ideas are right or wrong. They may have some ideas of where they want to get to, but they don't want to talk about a 5 to 10 year time horizon or vision because the environment that most businesses are operating in changed too quickly. If you instead interpret the question as, what have you done for me lately? Well, you're actually getting yourself caught in a common trap. You see, you got your paycheck because you did your job over the last 6 months. And that may be what companies care about and where your manager steers the discussion. But that's really not what architecture is all about, or how to ensure long-term success for your role as an architect within the organization. If you want to be perceived as a high-value resource, architects need to focus on the present. What can you do for your business over the next few months? It's good to have a vision of the longer term where things are going, but you really need to anchor your conversation in the present and the near term. And the best way to think about this is architects that are successful have a vision for the future, but a focus on the present. As we think about architects, we use the term architect. It means a lot of things. As we all know, there's many different architecture roles within the organization. Most of them are changing right now. It's good for us to understand how our job roles are changing because in many ways our skills and our tools need to adapt to meet those changes. So some of the things that we're seeing going on. In most organizations, we're seeing executives reclaiming the role of enterprise architecture and doing it themselves. Enterprise architects are now focused on issues like security, risk, reuse, and integration with partner ecosystems, not so much the strategy components, but how do you enable systems and processes that span outside of a discrete organization to work successfully? Business architects are starting to shift from digital transformation to this focus on enabling real-time capabilities. Many organizations are harvesting the value of digital transformation and then starting to look beyond it and say, what's next? And this real-time thing is what they're honing in on. Information and data architects are shifting from creating data models to helping business functions integrate data to drive decisions. So becoming experts on the data itself, not just mapping it together, but using the data to help drive analytics and helping organizations understand what information they have, how trustworthy it is, that sort of thing. Solution architects are shifting from building components and apps to assembling systems from third-party components. We see a lot more SaaS and off-the-shelf stuff playing into IT ecosystems. And then infrastructure architects are shifting from building networks and data centers to leveraging cloud services, public network SaaS for speed, scalability, security, really figuring out how to leverage the scale and global footprint of those services that are available. And this is where we actually see most architecture practices reaching out to Sparx Services North America and other services organizations around the globe for help. Most organizations have the tools, they know the concepts and methods, but we're going through a period where everybody's job role is kind of shifting, and most people are just trying to figure out how to adjust. And part of it is figuring out how to use the tools more effectively. Part of it's upskilling the individuals and teams, and part of it is providing a third-party perspective from outside the company and politics to help guide the organization to know how they need to change. So this is actually where we engage a lot and work with companies. It's not so much having the right tools. They have the right tools. They need to know how to use them and use them to solve the business problems of tomorrow, as well as support the discrete needs of today. Okay, this one is hard for many of us, but as architects, we love architecture. We love creating architecture. We love talking to people about architecture, but that's really not what our companies need us to do right now. It's amazing how many architects want to get their business stakeholders and management teams to start using their architecture tools and digging into their architecture models. Please stop. People don't want to see the sausage making. They just need to see the results. And they need to see how it's going to drive their projects faster and enable change to happen more fluidly. Stop trying to make everyone else into architects. Architects are really good at what we do and the insight we provide to the organization. Most people can't do what you do. Instead of focusing on making everyone else like you, you need to focus on developing yourself into more a business and technology savvy digital practitioner. So you can talk to executives and talk to business stakeholders in their language. When it comes to tools, Collaborate can really help you here too. It enables you to show people the models and architecture information that you've created in a way that's simple and interactive. I mean, after all, what architect doesn't want the entire organization to see the great stuff they're producing? I mean, it makes you feel good. So if you haven't checked out the Collaborate solution and what it can do for you, my contact information is at the end of the slides. We'd be happy to talk with you about it, or reach out to the Sparx Services organization in your region. They can share Collaborate with you as well. Okay, and then most importantly is, realize that companies are on a journey. They're on a journey from digital transformation to real-time data and decision-making towards this idea of enterprise business agility. As architects, we need to look beyond the current initiatives and help leaders map out a path towards that end goal, which is all about agility. You need to let go of the past, acknowledge past decisions, sunk costs, successes, and failures, but really focus in on the future. Focus on solving the real business problems that your organization are facing today. Use your architect skills to make complex things more simple. Talk to your stakeholders about where they're trying to go. Help them figure out what needs to change in order to get there. And then really embrace the methods and the concepts of Agile to create near-term value that compounds into longer-term benefits over time. As you think about the Sparx platform, it's more than a modeling tool. With Prolaborate, it really is a decision support platform to help you drive change across your entire enterprise. In times of intense change, when you need to be decisive and move quickly, remember, don't try and go at it alone. Whether you're going through a phase of decentralization where your centralized teams are moving out to the business, or whether you're going through the period where the organization is trying to get control of things happening in functional silos, or rebooting their architecture practice. Maybe you're starting a new transformation project and want to get the architecture right. Between Sparx Systems and the network of Sparx Services organization, we have the tools, we have the training, we have the consulting and best practices to help you be successful. You don't have to do it on your own. As a Sparx family, we're here to help. And with that, I'll go ahead, we'll open it up for questions. If you want to follow up with me or one of the Sparx Services North America folks afterwards, the contact information is right there. We're more than happy to work with your organization and your architects to help drive ongoing success as we enter this exciting digital age.
Thanks, Ryan. It was really great to hear a view of how this new digital age is going to impact the profession, and how Enterprise Architect and ProCloud Server and Prolaborate can help people. I was kind of sitting there, and on nearly every slide I kept thinking, well, you can break down silos by communicating through using ProCloud Server, and you can get your standards and your governance structures all in place using Enterprise Architect, and Enterprise Architect supports reuse and reusability and improves communication, and so there's a great deal of alignment there between the message that you were putting forward and the tool set that Sparx offers. So go on.
Well, and absolutely, Sparx, between EA and ProCloud Server and Prolaborate, we've got a great tool platform to help us do these things. And we've got a great set of individuals, skilled and knowledgeable in the architects, who are capable of doing these things. A lot of what we're seeing right now is just figuring out how to bring those pieces together in a way that meets the needs, the emergent needs of the organization. So it's great, we got all the components, and that's where I think we have the greatest opportunity to really up-level the architecture profession over the next few years, use the tools in new and exciting ways to deliver more and more value.
Excellent. So just one or two quick questions. So could you perhaps give an example of where Prolaborate can help simplify business problems and help bring them to life in a way?
Absolutely. I was actually chatting with some folks this morning about a capability-based planning process. As we have architects mapping the company's internal architecture to some reference models, and that's great that you're creating the relationships and stuff, but they needed to take that rich architecture information and share it with decision makers in a way that they could start having heat mapping type discussions and seeing how capabilities would evolve over time, and seeing how investments would map down to maturation of individual capabilities. And in that, what was being expressed was a challenge in taking all that rich architecture complexity and distilling it into something that a non-architect could understand. And Prolaborate was really the answer to that question. One, it allows us to curate architecture views for things like reviews. So you create a design, you want to review it with stakeholders. Well, you don't want to do it by sending PDFs and Visio documents via email and then getting feedback and then compiling that and reconciling it with the model. With Prolaborate, you can curate out the views, you can collaborate and do chat and things like that on the model itself, collect the feedback, do polling, reviews, approvals, within the Prolaborate system. You can also, once you've developed a roadmap and you start implementing it, use Prolaborate as a dashboard view to executives so they can see okay, this is where we were trying to get to. This is the path we said we were going to take to get there. And all those individual projects, how are their benefits stacking up? Are we getting there? Where are we ahead? Where are we behind? And Prolaborate really gives us, the tool to communicate and collaborate with that executive and business audience. That really isn't technical. They're used to looking at reports and dashboards, and this gives architects the tools to be able to communicate in that way with that audience.
So just a quick follow-up on that. So what are some of the ways that Sparx Services North America can help to improve some of those communication and collaboration issues and problems within organizations using Enterprise Architect, Pro Cloud Server, and Prolaborate in order to help architects adapt to this new digital world? So what are some of the practical steps that Sparx Services North America can do to help customers right now?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things that we're being asked to do very regularly that kind of play into this. One of them is we're starting to see more organizations that want to integrate Enterprise Architect with other systems, so they can ingest investment data from their finance systems, ingest operations data from their ITSM systems, and that sort of thing. Ingest people data from their HR system, and be able to pull that data into Enterprise Architect, where they can model their relationships and then use that to drive change and saying, okay, based upon all this real operational data, here's what needs to change. So it's breaking down that silo, and it kind of goes to that slide where I showed, sort of some of the lines and the data flows. And so as a services organization, we've done a lot of integrations. We do it all the time with companies, and we can help you do that. The other thing that we're seeing is a lot of organizations have the tools for architects, and they have tools for project managers. They have tools for portfolio planning, but they don't know how to leverage architecture in the planning process. And so we do a lot of work, actually with portfolio management teams and helping them understand how to leverage architecture and architecture-based approaches in the portfolio planning process. And we work with project managers to help them understand that architecture isn't meant to slow them down. Architecture is meant to make sure that when they deliver their project, that it meets the customer's needs, and it's going to be successful and meet the quality points that have been defined for it. So it's all about helping the organizations be more confident in what they're delivering and making sure that they're delivering the things that really are going to compound into value for the organization.
Thanks very much, Ryan. So just to wrap up, sparxsystems.com, Enterprise Architect version 15 is available now, and the trial is available to download, so you can get access to that right now. If you do a Google search for Sparx Systems YouTube, you get the Sparx Systems YouTube site, and there's hundreds of hours of free videos that are available for you to view. Recently, we've done some webinars on introducing Enterprise Architect 15 from more of a technical view, where this presentation was more of a business view. We talked about delivering Agile Enterprise, so we've done a couple of webinars on that, so you can see how that's put into practice. And we've looked at everything from requirements to creating dashboards in Prolaborate. Coming up very soon, next week, we've got a Prolaborate webinar, so if you'd like to hear a little bit more about that, please register for that webinar, and we're going to be delivering more coming up. I also have the Enterprise Architect 15 page, so you can see that there are tools here to help communicate to executives and architects. There's governance tools within Enterprise Architect 15, which means you can provide the tools that are relevant to the customers you need. There's been new enhancements to user interface technology to make it easier to use, everything from enhancements to the browser, to the properties menu, new diagram matrix views, new reporting, and lots of great new integrations with Pro Cloud Server and Prolaborate. Once again, just pointing out the Sparx Services organisation in your region. Please feel free to reach out to them if you have any questions, and they can help you get started and can really help move forward. So sparxsystems.com/webinars if you want to have a look at any webinars. The sparxsystems.com/EA15 for any information on the Enterprise Architect 15 tool. And as always, if you have any feedback, please send it through to webinar@sparxsystems.com. We'd be very pleased to hear your feedback and any ideas that you might have for the future. So we've got this Sparx Global webinar series, so if you have any suggestions for topics that you'd like to hear, because I'm sure Ryan would like to join us again and have a chat about some business topics that are relevant to our customers around the world. So sorry for dropping you in that, Ryan, but I'm sure you'd love to come back and do this all over again. So yeah, any suggestions, send a webinar@sparxsystems.com. And did you have any final comments that you'd like to make, Ryan, before we sign off?
Only final comment is I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. And if you're joining us on YouTube, feel free to share with folks in your organization. If you'd like to reach out to us at Sparx Services North America, sales@sparxsystems.us is the best contact method. You can also check out our website. It's in the slide presentation. And we would be happy to work with you to understand some of your company's unique needs and how we can help you be more effective as architecture teams in delivering value for your organization. So again, thanks, Scott.
No worries, thanks, Ryan. And there will be a poll when you close the webinar session down. So if you want to pass on your details to get contacted, please feel free to do so. I'd like to join in thanking everyone for joining us today. It's been great to see so many people on the line, and look forward to seeing you at a future session. So thanks very much, and have a great day.